Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Bill. This will be a campaign update for my Pathfinder campaign. It's been, 4 weeks or so since I've done an update. We've played at least 3 times since then. I haven't been feeling the best and I've been working a lot, so let's get back into filming. So, where we last left off, the party had just defeated the few wyverns out of the pyre of wyverns that attacked. So the pyre numbered, I think, 20 or 30 wyverns, and only like 6 or 8 of them ever landed. They managed to kill 3 of the dwarf NPCs. 1 was carried off. The other 2, their bodies are there. The party takes what works out of one wagon and uses it to fix another wagon. Some of the oxen were killed that were pulling the dwarven carts, or the dwarven wagons. So they collect the 4 stingers that they had cut off of the wyverns, the 3 wyvern heads. They then take the hides of the wyverns. They take what meat they can and try to preserve it that evening. In addition to all that, they're going to cash in the heads when they go back to the bigger town where they heard about all this wyvern stuff. The heads are worth 1,000 gold each. So after doing all that and gathering what they can, they then travel a short distance away, a couple miles, and make camp. So mostly during the watches for this night, they spend time trying to treat all the meat, at least salt the hides so that it can be processed later. Because no one in the party that I'm aware of is a leather worker or would know how to treat it all, so we're going for that for at the moment. So the party's almost at Griffin Keep. Either that evening or the following day, they had an encounter where they saw what I've been depicting as death. The old guy with the scythe and the robes that are tattered. The paladin decides to go investigate death. So he goes over to him and follows him, and death kind of just disappears, and the paladin pretty much walks into like 4 zombies. I believe this happened during a watch because the paladin was by himself. So I think he kills 1 zombie and then he retreats back towards the party, waking up a few of them and taking out the rest. After that, the party continues on. During the day, as they're getting closer to Griffin Keep, they start to see almost a mile-long battlefield that is littered with grave markers that have been slowly decaying to the elements. They see the markers being like the old weapons and stuff that were being used by the individuals during the battle. They find a magical spear just close to their roadside by using detect magic as they went. So they acquire it, but they have yet to identify it, even as of now. So once they make it to Griffin Keep, they spend 3 or 4 days resting. The dwarves spend most of that time in mourning, as well as re-equipping some rations. The party interacts with a halfling baker, since he's the only thing that's different than all the human soldiers in this keep. And they spend a lot of time talking to him, interacting with him. And they also spend time gathering rumors of what's going on in the area to see if there's anything they wanted to do. After that, they then continue on their adventure. So they have another encounter with the creature that's been putting everybody to sleep. So since in this recap it is going to be revealed what it is, I'll start calling it what it is. So the Sandman creature they have another encounter with, and it happens during first watch, and nobody wakes up pretty much until dawn. And that's all what happened the first game night that gets us caught up to there. The next game night, they had an encounter with a toll troll. So they're coming up to this area, they see these goblins out in the open, which is strange to them, but they see them actually armed decently for goblins. They have spears. There's 6 of them with spears and 6 of them with slings. And they see this big tall creature. As they get closer, they realize it's a troll standing in front of the bridge. So the party, there's a goblin speaking a common asking for the toll, and the toll's 3 silver. The party initiates an actual attack on these guys, which is no surprise. And they end up killing, I don't know, 2 or 3 of the melee goblins, the spear goblins, pretty quickly. And the spellcaster that knew sleep spell took out 3 of the ranged goblins the first turn. After that, the paladin moves up to the troll and engages him in hand-to-hand combat for the most part, or sword-to-fist combat for the most part. The troll, I don't think, hit him for any real damage the whole fight. And the party starts soaking that troll in oil. In the meantime, more of the goblins are getting killed. Excuse me. Allergies suck. Okay. In the meantime, more of the goblins are getting killed, and another sleep spell is attempted on the other group of ranged goblins. But all those goblins made their save, which was very surprising. After that, the troll is taking damage, but the damage they're doing is not enough to overpower his regeneration. So the party, as they're taking out these goblins, the goblin number gets down to about 6, and only 4 of them are awake. So probably 7 goblins, only 4 of them are awake. The ranged goblins decide it's time to run away. So the 3 that made the save against sleep spell run into the forest. The paladin, getting frustrated that the troll's regenerating so well, decides to cut off the leg of the troll, and he makes the attack roll needed and cuts the leg off. The troll, seeing that he is now completely outnumbered, covered in oil, and his leg's going to take a couple minutes to regenerate, decides it's better to surrender, especially since he can identify the paladin as a paladin. So he surrenders. The party then gains the chest of silver pieces and copper pieces that they've been collecting from the toll that was stored underneath the bridge. And then they talk to him, and they pretty much threaten him to not do it again. And they leave him there when they leave, or they watch him walk away in a direction before they leave. Well, as they get closer to the next town, so this will be, that whole fight was 1 game night because it was just a big encounter. As they get closer to the next town, they begin seeing the Sandman creature again. At the next town, they begin to re-equip. They learn what good trade goods there are in that town that they can buy cheaply here and sell for a normal price elsewhere, which would be a profit to them. And it's bolts of cloth, dyed cloth, wool, and linen cloth are what they produce here. And all the farms up to this town, they saw lots and lots of sheep and goats. So they know where most of the wool's coming from. They spend a few days in town, learn what rumors are going on about the area, and then they travel north, which is into the mountains towards the mining town they need to go to. They encounter the Sandman 2 or 3 more times, but most notably is If it was only 2 times, it was the first time they encountered him. Most notably, when they encounter him again, he doesn't approach their camp first, which is what he's done every time they've encountered him. He's amongst the dwarven encampment, so the people on watch sneak up on him and they surprise attack him. He fights back for 1 turn, and then they hit him again and he just turns to sand. They decide, he turned to sand. That's very strange. So they scoop up the sand, surprisingly not touching the sand, which would have been entertaining because he would have, I scoop up the sand. So you touch the sand? Fall asleep. So that they got 2 vials of the sand. I believe it was 2 vials. They might have had 3. They have it written down, so I'm not worried about if I'm wrong on that. So they've collected some of the Sandman sand that they can utilize as a weapon later. They encounter him a second time, and the half-elf of the party resists the sleep. And the half-elves and elves, I was given a DC 20 to resist the sleep. Everyone else, the DC is like 25, so I'm not having them roll. The half-elf resists the sleep, and he attacks the Sandman. The Sandman turns to sand within a round or 2 of taking damage, and they scoop another vial of the Sandman sand before the sand disappears. In the meantime, at some point, they check the old vials during the day, at least one of the old vials during the day, and as they bring it up to the daylight and look at it, it looks like sand, but the daylight, as the daylight hits it, it just burns the sand to smoke, and then it dissipates. So they've come to the conclusion they can't use it during the day, or at least during the sun. The visage of death that I've been having them encounter is seen again. They interacted with him by just kind of watching him for a second, and then he kind of just faded away. They enter a big area a couple days into the travel, and the trees have been stripped of bark up to a certain height, and only on one side of the tree. But it's been one tree, one tree, one tree, one tree, one tree. It's like a big row of it's been done. They look at the stripping of it, and they can see like grooves that have been carved into the flesh of the tree. And it took the ranger a minute, but he realizes it's a bear that did that. So they're entering a big bear's territory. Excuse me again. Okay. I hate my allergies. So they're entering a big bear's territory. They travel, I want to say it was like 3 to 5 miles before they see that marking again in the trees. And then on the other side of the trees, they start to see evidence of a farm or 2. Eventually they arrive in this very small town. This town probably has 40 buildings and only 20 of them occupied. And most of that has to do with the fact that that mine originally dried up, so that a lot of people left. And that's where that adventure left off, which is if we game tomorrow, where the gaming will take back up. So, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. If I got anything wrong, players, put it in the comments below. Until we all game again, guys.